Ready, Mr. Wow?
Doesn't matter. What matters is if you are.
All right.
You're running.
We'll call it to order.
Hey, are we doing the moment of silence?
Pledge of Allegiance, maybe?
I don't know. What is your thoughts? I don't know. Are they in halfway right now? We're kind of in like a stalemate there, so I don't know.
Yeah, I was thinking the same thing. So no.
We'll do it. Yeah, we'll do it. Okay. All right. Let's call this meeting to order. All right. So. All right. So, Mr. Spoonhour, will you lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
Please stand. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Ladies and gentlemen, please remain standing. It's become, at any time that we have soldiers in harm's way, we'd like to take a moment at this time to remember them. So please join me in a moment of silence for our troops that are defending our country. Thank you.
All right. So good evening, everyone, and thank you for taking the time to join us this evening. Tonight we have the opportunity to hear from Valley Link with updates regarding the project, including their updated map that was published yesterday. This update is reflective of the feedback that they've received on the project from Goochland County and across the region. I want to take the opportunity to thank Valley Link for the adjustments they have made, and also to share my appreciation to our citizens for their engagement in this process. And I'll turn it over to Dr. Raley.
Thank you, Mr. Christie, and good evening and welcome everyone. So as Mr. Christie shared, tonight's agenda will start off first with a presentation from Valley Link, and then following Valley Link's presentation, the board will have the opportunity to have some conversation with Valley Link, ask some clarifying questions, and during that time when the board is engaging with Valley Link, there will not be an opportunity for the citizens. However, that time will follow after the board is concluded with their question and answer period. All of you will have the opportunity to speak if you choose to do so. And then following the public comment section, Valley Link will have an opportunity to respond as they choose to any of the questions or comments that are shared tonight by our citizens and those in attendance. And then we will round up our agenda with the opportunity for the board to provide some closing comments if they choose to do so prior to adjournment. So before Valley Link begins this evening, just wanted to highlight some of the work that our Board of Supervisors has done so far related to this project, and just for the benefit of the audience who may not have the information that the board has done. The board's work really began back on April the 7th when the board adopted a resolution formally opposing the proposed Valley Link transmission project. And then just one short week later, the board led and appropriated $250,000 to support advocacy efforts against the project, including community engagement and the use of both professional and technical experts. And so in conjunction with other localities, Goochland County has submitted a filing to the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission, otherwise known as FERC, outlining our opposition and detailing the potential negative impacts on our community. So far, we have had 2 meetings of the Valley Link Advisory Committee, and there has been both staff representation and board member representation at both of those meetings to support the work of our citizens on the committee. And so, of course, tonight we have a special called meeting, another step that the board is doing in advocacy for our community. We do ask that you continue to be engaged in this work and stay abreast of what is happening related to this topic in our community. We encourage you to attend the Valley Link Virtual Community Open House on June the 10th. It will take place from 12 o'clock to 1 p.m. The link is available on our county website. We also ask that you plan on attending the upcoming open house, which will take place on June the 16th in a large window from 3 p.m. to 7 p.m., and that will take place at the Goochland Sports Complex. Please encourage you to share your thoughts this evening through the Valley Link website and with your elected officials in Richmond. So the Board of Supervisors is committed to remaining engaged in the Valley Link project in order to continue to advocate for Goochland's long-term interests, its rural character, and the well-being of its residents.
All right, and you want to go ahead and continue with share the process following public comment?
Well,
Oh, is that?
go to Dominion's presentation.
Oh, sorry. All right, so now we'll turn it over to Dominion for their presentation.
I have an interest in all the agricultural type of questions, so as we get there. Is there anything you want to tell me right now?
Dr. Raley, members of the board, good evening. Thank you very much for having us tonight. My name is Rob Richardson. I am an employee of Dominion Energy. I'm here with several of my colleagues. We're all Dominion Energy employees. We are here tonight speaking to you and speaking to the audience on behalf of Valley Link. Valley Link doesn't have any employees. Remember, it's made up of 3 companies, but we're all members and employees of Dominion. So thank you very much. Just a correction, I think the 16th of June, I think the meeting is 3:30 to 7:30 here in Goochland County on the 16th. This slide is meant to display a forecast of energy demand in Virginia. We have to plan responsibly today for the energy demands we know are coming in the near future. When you look at this slide, the way I like to describe it is it took Dominion about 100 years to get to 20,000 megawatts, where we were providing 20,000 megawatts to customers in our DOM zone in our region. In the next 15 or 20 years, by 2035, we're going to get to more than double that according to the PJM forecast. Doubling that load in 15 years is going to be a monumental task for this company in order to prepare for that. Much of the growth, of course, is being driven by continued economic development, population growth, especially the expansion of data centers across Virginia. As demand accelerates, the region will need a more robust, resilient electric grid capable of supporting both existing customers and future development. That's why planning efforts are focused on all the above energy strategy. A reliable grid requires a diverse mix of generation resources working together. Many of you have heard about a planned generation facility in Cumberland County. Many of you may have heard in past years about plans for an SMR technology in Louisa County. At the same time, there remains a strong commitment to carbon-free energy, long-term sustainability goals. Finally, this forecast reinforces the need for continued investment in transmission and distribution infrastructure. Expanding and modernizing the grid will be essential to delivering more power where it is needed, supporting economic growth, maintaining reliability as Virginia energy demands continue to rise. The demand in power in Dominion's territory continues to accelerate at a pace that exceeds historical expectations. Dominion remains the fastest growing zone in PJM, driven largely by continued data center expansion, broader economic growth across Northern Virginia. The forecasts show both summer-winter peak demands increasing steadily over the next decade and beyond. What's especially notable is how actual winter peaks have consistently outperformed prior forecasts. In 2022, the winter peak exceeded projections by nearly 1,900 megawatts. 2023, it came in at more than 500 megawatts above forecast. In 2024, just 2 years ago, the peak exceeded expectations by roughly 674 megawatts, and even last year, winter demand surpassed the forecast by more than 1,300 megawatts. It's a lot of power. Future reliability needs is what this slide is meant to share with you. It highlights why PJM and utilities are taking a broader, long-term view when planning for future reliability needs. As part of the 2024 open window process, planners evaluated a 5-year case focused on 2029, but they also incorporated a sensitivity analysis extending out 8 years. One of the biggest drivers behind reliability concerns is the continued expansion of data center development beyond Northern Virginia. Load growth is no longer isolated to the traditional NOVA corridor. It is spreading into surrounding regions, which creates a more widespread need for transmission upgrades across the broader grid. At the same time, the scale of projected load growth is creating a need for major infrastructure investment to support increased east to west power flows. That includes extra high voltage transmission solutions spanning multiple utility service territories, including AEP, First Energy, and Dominion Energy. I think that many of you here, also addressing the board, are aware of what Valley Link is, who it is, that it's a joint venture between Dominion Energy, First Energy, and American Electric Power. It's created in 2024 to support long-term grid reliability. It combines the expertise and the strengths of the 3 member companies. Joshua Falls to Yeet is approximately 115 miles. The voltage is 765 kilovolts, not a voltage that we currently have in our Dominion Energy service territory. The need, the power from this project is needed in 2029. We have initially started looking at 17, 18, 19 counties, and currently looking between Campbell County and Culpeper County at 3 routes, refined routes. We'll talk about those in just a minute. This project was selected through a competitive regional transmission planning process by PJM, approved by PJM in February of 2025. PJM is the regional grid operator, and this is the solution that best met their long-term reliability needs. This is a typical structure that you would expect to find on a project like this. On the website, Valley-Link Transmission, VLTransmission.com, there are 5 or 6 different structures. This typical 765 kV lattice structure, approximately 135 to 160 feet tall, in a typical right-of-way of approximately 200 feet wide. This would be the structure that you would see once the transmission line is built. This will be the main structure. There are different structures when you turn at certain angles. This would be the main structure for the project. Talk a little bit about routing, and I have some other colleagues here who can go into a little more detail if the board chooses to ask those types of questions. When we begin a project like this and looking at how to route between Campbell County and Culpeper County, or Northern Virginia, or in Mecklenburg, any part of our service territory, we always begin with the same type of process. We're looking for opportunities. We're looking for existing transmission lines, existing rights-of-way, anything that we would be able to co-locate a new transmission line with existing transmission lines, existing linear infrastructure. It may be a road, it may be a pipeline, it may be a water line. Those are the opportunities. Constraints are something that we look at right off the top as well. Sensitive resources, you can see there: wetlands, water bodies, historic properties, land use, existing and planned residential developments, conservation easements, public lands. That's why we talk with planning commissions in every county that we work in frequently to understand what development is coming. Then the other types of things that we have to balance are engineering and construction considerations, tower heights, span lengths, right-of-way widths, construction access, other linear facilities, utilities, roads, highways, river and floodway crossings. Of course, the James River is a major consideration for us with this project. The three balls there, circles on the right, sort of emphasize how we have to balance the statutory requirements, community feedback, and our project goals. So for this project, and this map shows the conceptual routes as of May of 2026. I think we dropped this image here on this slide yesterday afternoon. Our key goals are to reduce impacts on residents. Fewer than 75 homes along the entire 115-mile corridor are within 500 feet of each of the refined route alternatives. Continue to minimize impacts to wetlands, sensitive environmental resources, recreation areas. We've reviewed approximately 15,000 miles of routing alternatives, documented and reviewed more than 2,000 public comments, which continue to extensive routing refinements, identification of important local resources, and land use issues. This is Goochland County here. The top of the image, you can see the remaining 1.25 miles of impact from the Joshua Falls to Yeet refined routes. We had more than 20 miles of routes, variations through Goochland in the first iteration of route alternatives in March that we detailed to the public. How we got here is by public comment, is by people coming to our meetings, by making adjustments. We had a meeting here with a routing team and our subject matter experts, and we had a lot of folks come to our meeting and tell us, just like other counties, what they liked and what they didn't like. We heard, quite frankly, a lot more about what people didn't like than what they did like. But we listened. And following those meetings in March, Lane, my colleague here, her routing team got together with the engineering team, and they began working on making these updates, making these refinements to these routes to try to, in not every case, but in many cases, minimize impacts to residential development, but then also, as I mentioned, to balance those impacts with environmental, historical, and cultural impacts in the county as well. What resulted here was a 1.25 mile route that continues through the tip of Goochland County. Wrong button. There we go. This is more along the lines of the way I spend my time, which is community engagement. In March, we had 11 in-person open houses, 2 virtual open houses, and you can see the numbers there, more than 4,000 people when you combine those two numbers. And as Dr. Raley mentioned, we're getting ready to do that again in June. Our first meeting, virtual meeting, is June the 10th, and then from June 15th through June 25th, we have a series of 9 meetings in 9 counties. All the meetings are scheduled from 3:30 to 7:30, and we hope that you will come out and speak to us. Let us know if there are continued impacts. Let us know if there are concerns, and we expect to have as many attendees as in June as we had in March, and we look forward to those meetings. We'll be staffed up and prepared to answer questions. Some of the feedback that we received from meetings in March were limited broadband access in rural communities. So we worked with local libraries in each county to provide resources such as hard copy map books and GeoVoice tutorials for the staff. The libraries in each of these 9 counties have been phenomenal, really fantastic to work with and open-minded. No confirmation of comments or feedback shared online. We implemented a confirmation receipt for online comments. We got comments that said we've submitted a question on the website, a phone number, but haven't received a response. We strengthened our team to respond to more than 2,000 comments that we received really in a short period of time. And then we heard that we were expecting a presentation and to have our questions answered as people came to our open houses. We opened the doors early and stayed late to accommodate attendees. It's our process, it's our preference to bring people into our meetings for one-on-one conversations so that they can ask individual questions of our team, of the routing team, of the project team, and get one-on-one help. And you can't get that sort of help one-on-one in a meeting with a presentation. So we always prefer the style of meetings that we have, and we offer the presentation as a virtual option. So what happens next? I mentioned the June meetings, and June 15th through the 25th. Those meetings are available. Those meeting dates and locations are available online. The refined routes are live on GeoVoice as of yesterday morning. We'll file an application with the State Corporation Commission this fall, and then the SCC process begins, including opportunities for public engagement, continue with the SCC, and we expect a final ruling from the State Corporation Commission in the fall of 2027. Just a final note here, and then my colleagues will be prepared to answer your questions. Transmission is foundational infrastructure. It's not optional. It's comprehensive. Durable grid planning equals fewer, better planned projects, avoiding smaller, rushed projects. Early proactive regional and interregional transmission planning is the least cost path to meet load growth, maintain reliability, and protect consumers. This avoids unnecessary reliability risks during heat waves and winter storms. Well-planned transmission investments pay for themselves multiple times over, while delays lock in higher costs and reliability risks for decades. Reinforcing the transmission grid keeps the costs lower for our customers. Thank you very much for the opportunity to make a presentation to you all. I appreciate it. Our team, Greg, Adam, Lane, and others look forward to your questions.
All right, thank you. All right, so board members, any discussion? Oh, do you guys have any talking points? We do have some questions, I'm sure. Yeah, I'll go ahead and lead off. So my first question is the Joshua Falls Yeet 765 kV transmission line being proposed as a standalone transmission project, or is it intended to function as like a broader backbone, if you will, and for future expansion in, obviously now with the new maps, not in Goochland, but across the rural landscape of Virginia?
Sorry about that. To answer your first question, the answer is that this line is really electrically, this is a backbone to support the rest of our grid. If you look at this transmission line and the route it's taking, right, it kind of cuts northeast across Virginia, starting in Lynchburg and ending in Culpeper County. From a Goochland perspective, and I'm a Goochlander myself, I know you're probably familiar with the 500 kV existing Dominion transmission line that kind of comes east-west through the county, kind of runs through Haydensville, and then enters into Fluvanna. So that's one of Dominion's main 500 kV arterial lines. That line was rebuilt about 10 years ago. It's already seeing fairly heavy loads on that line. It is likely at some point in the future that we would look to tie the 765 line to that 500 kV line to strengthen our existing backbone system. I know you're also familiar with the Dominion's 500 kV line that runs through Crozier, kind of goes right by where the North Pole restaurant used to be. So that line, really, this project is designed to solve overloads on that transmission line. If you look at the old PJM maps from when we were looking at the year 2029 when this project was approved, you'd see that Dominion's north-south 500 kV corridor was all overloading, including that line coming through Goochland running north-south, which is one of our most heavily loaded feeder lines in our system right now. So this line is designed to take pressure off those existing 500 kV lines. We have a number of other, I know Rob mentioned a little bit, we're adding a lot of generation. We're upgrading lines everywhere that we can. We have a variety of projects in the hopper to solve this unprecedented level of demand that we're seeing right now. And this line is one part of a solution to solve those problems. But yes, to answer your first question, it is designed to be a backbone that the rest of the grid connects to strengthen the rest of the grid, to relieve congestion on our existing transmission lines, and to support future economic development, as I know we have here in Goochland with the Eli Lilly plant. And I know you had a second part of the question, and I'm sorry I was getting the microphone down to my height, so I might have missed it. So please go ahead.
So I had sort of a follow-up. So I guess along this path, are there going to be substations periodically, and are we expecting economic growth along the current line, or is it just where the 500 kV interconnects?
So that's a great question. Right now, this project is proposed kind of as an end-to-end project. It doesn't have any substations or anything proposed along the project right now. However, to your question, certainly we would think that we would tie it into the existing EHV system, our existing 500 lines as we went by there. The Cumberland power station that's proposed is roughly 3 miles from this line. This line might play a role in helping offload that power to where it needs to go. From a county perspective, this is a high-capacity line. It's running through a couple areas in Louisa that may be slated for data centers. This line could certainly provide what we would call local transmission support to support our low-voltage transmission lines that would serve facilities like data centers, like the Eli Lilly manufacturing facility, other kind of high-load users. So you could certainly see economic development along the line, but obviously that's a county prerogative as well.
All right. Any board members? You want me to keep going? I've got a list, but I want to give you guys the opportunity.
Well, thank you. How do you turn these on?
Here, just take mine.
All right. This may be my just not understanding the energy and the utility industry, but if the demand is in Northern Virginia, why are not we putting generation capacity up there?
So it's a great question.
Those are the kind I like to ask.
The short answer is that we are putting generation capacity all across the state right now. But as you can imagine, if you want to locate a generator right next to a load, let's say that you're going to put a bunch of generators in Loudoun County, you still need to supply those generators with infrastructure to feed them, right? If you're building natural gas plants, you might not be talking about a transmission line coming through a county, but you're talking about building natural gas lines from natural gas fields over to where those generators are, right? So there's always going to be infrastructure associated with power generation. I know, actually I was reading the history of Dominion Energy a couple weeks ago, just for fun. And the original 500 kV grid was actually built by Dominion. We were the first 500 kV system in the entire country. And we built it because we had a power station up at Mount Storm, which is a coal power station. It's out in West Virginia. It sits at the mouth of a mine. And at that time, it was decided that it was more economical and lower impact for us to build a high voltage 500 kV grid to move the power from Mount Storm back to Northern Virginia, to Central Virginia, where the load was, and this was back in the late 1960s, versus trying to build new train tracks and to ship that coal from West Virginia all the way into Northern Virginia, where the load was back in 1968 or whenever it was when we started on that project. So this is a similar situation, just 60 years later.
Okay.
Can I just add to that? Just on a generation note, we have a couple facilities up in Northern Virginia that we're uprating. Uprating means getting more juice out of those power stations. They're limited because you can only uprate by so much. We also put installation at Dulles Airport, the largest solar facilities on a public airport property. That's going into service next month. So yes, as Adam said, there's generation going in really across the Commonwealth with additions for more. But given the load that Rob went through, it's really an all of the above strategy, both on the wire side, but also on the generation side.
Mr. Chair.
Yeah, go ahead.
Again, I want to reiterate our thanks for looking at how those lines are changing. I guess my question is, Goochland has absolutely no plans whatsoever for data centers outside of the TOD, which is in the eastern part of the county. So nothing in the west where these lines would be coming, nor do we plan on any significant residential growth outside of the courthouse area. So so our citizens will not benefit from this in that project. How how can we be assured that these maps that have been published this week are the actual maps that other routes, that we're just taking them off for now because we're getting a lot of heat on those. We have a very engaged citizenry, which I absolutely love. But how can we be assured that those are the lines that are going to be presented to the SEC, or can they change and some of those other alternatives come back in?
Sure. So I'll take a few of those parts, and then Lane, I'll ask you to sort of touch base on sort of the routing on how we got in and out of Goochland and why that remains. First and foremost, everybody benefits from transmission lines, existing transmission lines across the Commonwealth. They effectively and efficiently and cost-effectively move power along where it's needed. And so Dominion Energy Transmission provides service to both Dominion customers as well as co-op customers. So all co-ops and municipalities get their power from a Dominion transmission line. So as the pressure that Rob talked about and Adam talked about coming down from Northern Virginia and the load that we're seeing in Central Virginia, and Rob glossed over this a little bit, but there's also in the 2024 case, which looked at 2029, generation retirements in Maryland. And so as PJM looked at the reliability needs of the system in 2029, that put pressure on all the other lines that serve us as residential. And so that's why these transmission lines are needed, to bolster all the other transmission lines, to relieve that pressure and relieve those constraints on those lines. So although the lines go through the county, transmission lines don't see county lines, they don't really see anything, but we all benefit from them. Right now, I know all of us sort of benefit from a transmission line that goes through another county. We have generation in Southside Virginia, in West Virginia, in Northern Virginia, and so all of those generation facilities are using the transmission lines to get power to where you need them, whether that's a business or residential. So absolutely every citizen will need it. We know that there's economic development growth in Goochland County. We talked about the Eli Lilly facility that's requiring a new substation and a new transmission line. So that load contributes to the load growth that Rob showed on the map as well. So yes, there is definite benefits. Whether or not other counties want economic development along that line, that's a locality decision to make. We're just simply meeting our obligation to provide reliable power to our citizens.
Neil, I've got a...
The second part, yes. Hi there, I'm Lane Carr. I oversee the siting and permitting for Dominion Energy, working on behalf of Valley Link. So yes, we had about 28 miles total of original routes through Goochland County. That's very typical when we start any kind of routing project. We cast a very wide net. We need to make sure we are evaluating any possible alternative. And we go to the public for feedback. We talk to a variety of other stakeholders for their input. And we go through the process. So what we learned in March, we talked to a lot of folks. You were very engaged. Thank you for coming out. We heard, please stay as far away from my home as possible. We were pretty close to some homes with those original routes. I can assure you that those March routes have been permanently expired. You will not see them coming back. The approximate 1.25 miles that remains through Goochland, I would imagine the natural question is, well, why can't you just avoid us altogether? Talk a little bit about that. When you look at a specific area of a route, especially for about 115 miles, you look at 1 mile, you've got to look at what's happening to the north and what's happening to the south. So to the north, we have some anchor points. Specifically, we look for future growth areas. We know the Shannon Hills, whatever, I think Louisa calls it Shannon Hills, Goochland calls it Shannon Hill. That was one of our anchor points. If we have a possibility or an opportunity to route through somewhere that has been proposed or is existing industrial nature, I know the EdgeCore data center is being built just across 64 right there. So that was a routing opportunity for us. If we can continue to route through those existing industrial areas, that's what we'll do. And then to the south, coming out of Fluvanna, there are a lot of conservation easements that we had to avoid, which was the reason why you still have about a mile through Goochland County.
On that theme, I've got
Yes.
something. Will Valley Link produce a single composite cumulative impact map showing the 765 line together with all the anticipated downstream, like you elaborated to potentially Louisa's data center, the step-down stations, Thornburg substation, related also to the 500 kV facility distribution projects, identifiable data centers, et cetera, et cetera. Will you guys be providing like a forecast map?
Forecast map.
So from a routing study perspective, which will be in the State Corporation Commission application, the proposed project will be the Valley Link Joshua Falls to Yeet transmission line, plus the Yeet substation, and that will be enumerated in the State Corporation Commission process. The other Valley Link projects, which is a northern line that goes from West Virginia, the top of Virginia, into Maryland, that will be filed separately because it's a separate project. And that will go through its own commission processes in West Virginia, Virginia, and Maryland. And then you mentioned the Thornburg substation, which is a Valley Link asset, which is going to be connected to a Dominion Energy project, which will be filed here in the coming months. So the way the State Corporation Commission looks at those projects are individual projects, and those projects will have a comprehensive routing study attached to them, which talks about impacts, environmental concerns, what we looked at, what we dismissed, why we dismissed it. It's a very long list of things that they include, but all of the homework will be shown in that evaluation.
Oh, why are they individual projects? Oh, sorry, why are they individual projects? Why are they not one all-encompassing project?
Just the way that the nature works, individually they have their own utility, and so the way that PJM, so the regional transmission operator, so in the 2024, we've talked about this open window, so they look 5 years out, they talk about all these reliability needs of the system, and then they approve a portfolio of projects that are individually developed and managed, whether that's by an entity like Valley Link or Dominion Energy or another utility in Ohio. All of those projects are individually run because they're solving unique parts of those reliability concerns. And so that's why each project is individually put forward to the State Corporation Commission.
All right, thank you. Tom, did you have a question?
Yeah. I want to go back to Mr. Spoonhour's concern, which is mine as well. And if you could visit with us a little more, with more surety or definite permanency of that line, of that route. I think we were all pretty well relieved a little bit, let's say, that the new route is minimally impacting Goochland. It still is, but why would we take our foot off the throttle, so to speak, in our involvement in this issue, because it's been a moving target all along, and those routes look like a bowl of spaghetti after a while, you know. So can you give us some more assurance as to, can we rely on the current route?
So as anybody who's looked at the updated routes, what we've tried to do when we start, again, I talked about casting a wide net, looking at a variety of alternatives. We are always seeking to refine those as we get closer to filing our application with the State Corporation Commission. So that's what these May routes show, is our route refinements after all of the public input and feedback, constructability reviews with our engineers, looking to really narrow down what Valley Link believes to be the route that best minimizes impacts to and balances impacts to all the resources to the greatest extent practicable. So at this time, the route corridor, Route 2, the blue route through Goochland, remains one of our viable alternatives. We still have, again, more public meetings to attend and collect input. After June open houses, sometime in July or August, the team, again, will get together, filter through all of the comments received. I expect we'll have several thousand again. And Valley Link will define the proposed route that they choose to take forward to the State Corporation Commission. We'll have a proposed route. We'll probably have at least one alternative. But we're not at the point yet to define which of the routes that is.
So, I mean, you can imagine the public opinion if you come in with another route that more severely impacted our county. So would you anticipate another route more severely impacting?
I do not.
Okay, that's what I'm trying to find out. Thank you.
It's been brought to our attention that Dominion has the right as the options to purchase a significant amount of land in Goochland County, right on Whitehall Road, approximately 1,000 acres. And so my question is, do these options to purchase all this significant farmland in Goochland, does this have anything to do with this project? And if it doesn't, can you say why Dominion is buying all this land in Goochland, or getting the options to buy all this land in Goochland?
Sure. So no, it doesn't have a connection to this project. Dominion tends to look at available opportunities, as you guys may have been paying attention to all of the above strategy, especially on our solar development. We just look at opportunities across the Commonwealth to see where there may be opportunities for further infrastructure opportunities, whether that's solar or other resources. Not to say that I don't know what's going to go there, but that tends to be why we get options on certain parcels of land. We sometimes do that from a substation perspective. If we think we may need a substation in 10 or 15 years and there's an opportunity to purchase property sooner rather than later, sometimes we do that. If we don't need it, we'll sell it back. So it just gives our team some flexibility, whether it's on the generation side or on the substation development side. So, but any further information, I'm not aware of what the plans are.
Yeah, if I may, I want to put my Farm Bureau hat on. I sit on the Goochland Farm Bureau board, and I know the Louisa Farm Bureau, Goochland Farm Bureau have all passed resolutions opposing this. And one of the questions is how this will affect agricultural operations. You've got a lot of energy running through, 765 kilovolts through those lines, and you have right-of-way. And so, forgive me for being detailed, but I want to make sure I get this right. So what engineering protocols are going to be required for agricultural operations beneath the line, including bonding and grounding of irrigation systems, grain bins, fuel and chemical tanks, fencing, and tall equipment? Will Valley Link commit to fund all such protocols at no cost to the landowner? Can tractors, combines, sprayers, and augers be safely operated beneath the conductors? And under what specific conditions? And are Valley Link's right-of-way maintenance methods, including herbicide, vegetation management practices, compatible with USDA organic certification? And will Valley Link commit to maintaining organic farm eligibility for any certified organic operation within or adjacent to the right-of-way? That's a lot.
It was a big question. I'll do my best. I'll start at the beginning.
Do you want me to ask it again?
I'll take a crack at it. If I miss anything, we'll circle back.
Yeah, basically, it comes down to how can you minimize, if not eliminate, any negative impact on the farming community?
Yeah, absolutely. No, it's a fantastic question. So this 765 line is part of a network of 765 kV lines. AEP has over 2,200 miles of 765 kV lines, most of it built out in the 1970s. So these lines have been in operation for roughly half a century. Those operational lines, one of the prime uses of the land beneath them is for farming. Right? Agriculture is a very compatible use case with transmission lines. From a transmission line operation standpoint, there is nothing we like better than a pasture or a planted field beneath a transmission line, because that's an area that we don't have to worry about trees growing, right? That's an area that the farmer is taking care of. And if you have pasture, we're not coming in to spray that if you're maintaining your pasture. And there's, mostly what we're worried about is woody trees that could grow up into a transmission line. Certainly, when you talk about whether you could, certify the farm as organic, that's something that I can go back and talk to our forestry team and get you an answer. My gut reaction is that, our forestry team works hard to work with landowners to minimize impacts as much as we can, and certainly with farming operations, right, we're generally not worried as much about trees because that's really what we're concerned about. On your question about bonding and grounding, certainly when you're talking about high voltage transmission lines, bonding and grounding, particularly if you have fences that parallel a line and they're metallic and they run for a certain length. There are certain bonding and grounding protocols that you would want to put on the fence to make sure you don't get any nuisance voltage. Stray voltage is it's a factor that can impact really any voltage of power. It happens a lot on our distribution lines because those are closer to the ground. They have unbalanced neutral sometimes. So it's definitely something as a power company that we are familiar with. We're very familiar with mitigating any issues that occur with stray voltage. We have a lot of resources and engineers who can go out, and that should be ideally a one-time fix. If you have, if you build a new fence and you say, I'm picking up a little shock off this fence here, that's something where our engineers can come out, can validate that, and show you, hey, we just put a little isolation here, and you're good to go. So that's definitely something the industry's been familiar with. It's a documented phenomenon going back 100 years. So definitely something that we would commit to making sure that was remedied.
But at what level is that the producer's responsibility to finance and pay for that, and at what point does it become part of the Valley Link agreement?
So that's a great question. At the time the easement would be purchased, right? If you have existing facilities and there is concern about potential nuisance voltage, is what we call it, stray voltage, we would certainly work those into the easement compensation, make sure that our engineers are coming out to address that. Down the line, 30 years down the road, if you put in a fence, I would have to check with our team on kind of how we handle those operationally. Okay, Greg tells me that would be their responsibility, but again, that, if it's designed properly, is not generally a significantly expensive. It doesn't add much expense. It's just a slight design tweak to the facilities you're putting in to make sure it's grounded properly, to make sure you don't have any potential for nuisance voltage. And that's, again, across the grid. You see it at all voltage levels.
So and are there height limits then to equipment? I mean, some of these combines, they're going vertical as well as horizontal, so.
Absolutely. So that's a great question. So all transmission lines are designed according to the National Electric Safety Code. And one of the parameters in the National Electric Safety Code, I'm putting my engineering hat on now, is your vertical clearance. So the minimum clearance when your wires are running as hot as they're going to run. When you have full load on those wires and they're sagging down and they're really pumping power, you still got to make sure that wire at its lowest point of its sag is safe for the public beneath it. And safe for the public is not just that you can walk under it. It means that you can drive vehicles underneath it, and those vehicles that vehicle height is defined by the DOT. So as a general rule of thumb, if you have equipment that is safe to take on a road, then you have equipment that is safe to use under a transmission line.
Okay.
If you have unusually large, like mining equipment, right? This happens sometimes when we have power lines that might be running through like a luckstone operation, which is using custom-built, unusually large dump trucks. There might be something that we would work with the property owner to make sure that we're not impacting their operations. But as a general rule of thumb, the answer is yes. This should not impact any of the operations you'd be undertaking.
Thank you very much.
Absolutely.
While you're on safety, it was brought to my attention that at your Orange County Town Hall, there was a sign posted that said that there is no evidence that high voltage transmissions cause health problems. Health concerns I see all over the place. One of our researchers found 2 articles, one in the British Columbia Medical Journal and one in the Japanese Journal of Epidemiology, say otherwise. So, in that there's higher rates of leukemia in children within 600 meters. So, with published studies out there, how do you feel comfortable making the statement that there's no known health risks?
So we understand that if you go and looking for information across the board, whatever the issue is, you're going to get information that confirms or goes counter to what it is that you think. Right? So on the EMF side, there's plenty of information on both sides of the issue. And so we don't take that for granted, and that's why we study it. That's why our engineers take it into consideration when they're doing their line design. That's exactly why the State Corporation Commission asks us to model the electric and magnetic fields, and that's in our application, plus all the research that goes into those effects. And so it's a very much of an issue that we take care and understand for. And so the research that we rely on and the State Corporation Commission relies on, they have found that there's no causality. But we understand that it's a concern. So, so I'm not saying that those other studies are not valid. I'm just saying that we take it into consideration, and the State Corporation Commission does look at those numbers for their review of the line and if it's safe for the public.
All right, I've got only just a few more questions. So, once this goes through the SEC, whether it be Goochland, Louisa, wherever, can you describe the construction process? Like where you're gonna stage the equipment? Can we expect damages to the roads?
Sure, I'll let Adam talk about the construction process, but construction won't start until we have all of our permits, right? So the first step is the State Corporation Commission, where they verify the need and they pick the route that best meets the code to limit impacts. Once they determine what the route is, then we go forward in getting our subsequent permits. That may be environmental permits, Army Corps, road crossing permits, the like. Of course, and then our real estate folks will purchase easements, and then we'll start construction. And I'll let Adam talk about it, but we're still far away from that time frame. As Rob mentioned, we're expecting maybe a decision in late 2027, but then there's still a lot of other activities that need to happen before construction starts. We're going to be communicating a lot post-SEC on that process and where we are. So nothing should come as a surprise once we get into construction. But Adam can talk about the typical sort of time frame and what the sequencing is for construction.
I guess from our perspective, the concern is some of the properties that you guys have around Goochland, are they going to be used as a staging area for some of the equipment, like a laydown area and whatnot?
So for laydown areas, we'll need a permit for that. We haven't gotten to that point on evaluation. Sometimes Dominion Energy, or in this case, Valley Link, will get its own laydown yards. Sometimes we'll have our construction contractor get their own laydown yards. We haven't gotten to that point yet, but those would need permits if it's not already permitted for such.
All right, and then my final question, board members, is why hasn't Virginia kept up with the power load? Why are we now at this point to where we have to import power?
So we have been keeping up with the demands on the grid. It's an evolutionary machine, right? So it's not static. So we often say that it's a living, breathing machine that has to grow over time. In the early 2000s through the teens, there was very minimal growth, and so we were focusing on rebuilding transmission lines that were aging, 60, 70 years old. But the use of those facilities by our customers were changing, right? The dynamic in which they were using the facilities changed, whether that's more usage or less usage. Over time, year over year, we go through reliability projects to meet the needs of the future grid. And so it's not that we're behind, it's that this is the normal process. It just so happens that there's a lot more projects, and the projects are bigger than they were in the past. Really, in 2022, the load forecast changed in Virginia, and really across the country, but really in Virginia, where we were seeing about 0.5% to 1.5% growth year over year, which in utility terms was a lot of growth. Then in 2022, it exploded to 6.5%. Wow. And so at that time on the generation, we were making a lot of retirement announcements of fossil fuel generation, moving more towards solar batteries and offshore wind. So we were ramping down sort of the big generation units. And at the same time, we were doing what we would call more regional transmission upgrades, especially in Northern Virginia and Southside Virginia, where a lot of the data center growth was happening. And then over time, especially the last 7 years, it's exploded. And so the normal process for us is to look 5 or 7 or 8 years out. And so we're just in that journey of development and expansion. It's not that we're not catching up. It's just that that's the normal process that we go through, where most of our customers probably haven't seen a transmission line project in quite a long time. It's just that now it's really sort of everywhere.
So we are very grateful that the new lines have come out and what we've seen. That being said, while these lines are favorable to Goochland, Goochland does not stand alone. We are a beautiful region. So while we do, sometimes pull up our borders every now and then, but we do care about our neighbors because they are part of our region, they are part of our community. Have you looked at, I've never seen a map that didn't include the 9 counties that are, or I'm sorry, the other counties that are in here. Have you looked at other alternatives that don't include Goochland, Orange, Louisa, Fluvanna, Culpeper, Buckingham, Appomattox, Campbell, or Spotsylvania? And if you did, why were those abandoned in favor of these counties?
Sure. I'll let Lane explain a little bit more, but she mentioned it that we started at a 13 county-wide study area. We knew that the beginning point was going to be the substation down in Campbell County because that's where the 765 network sort of ends in Virginia, so to speak. And so we knew we needed to bring that into the Dominion Energy Zone. We knew that the substation needed to be north of our North Anna nuclear facility to help with that north central bolstering of the grid. And so you start wide. I'll let Lane talk about sort of how that developed over time. But I just remind folks that we're neighbors too, and we live here. Adam lives in Goochland. I live in Henrico. Many of us are your neighbors, and so we're here too, and we enjoy all the same resources that you all enjoy, the nature, the historic resources, and we want to protect those too, and that's why we take so much care in how we develop infrastructure. Again, Rob said it, but a lot of transmission projects are foundational and not optional in nature. It's more about how we go about doing that. We do it in a very public process, so it can look very messy, but it's very public for a reason, so that it's transparent, and we get all the feedback that we need to make good decisions, ultimately providing all that homework to the State Corporation Commission. But there is a reason why the line is coming through these 9 counties versus going somewhere either more west or northwest.
Yeah, like we talked about when we started this process, we had endpoint to endpoint, and we draw our initial study area. And then we start the process of data collection. We collect massive amounts of everything that's publicly available, information we can get from the counties that may not be publicly available, and we start mapping that across that huge, wide study area. And what we found in the counties like Amherst, Nelson, Albemarle that were originally in our study area, I know there's a lot of talk about why not parallel Route 29. I would say the big reason is the constraints. The conservation easements in that area, it's highly constrained. Similar to co-location or paralleling existing infrastructure. Like Adam talked about, a lot of the existing 500 kV and 230 kV lines in our project area were built back in the 60s and 70s when you didn't have a lot of constraints. You could build a straight transmission line. We would love to do that. That would be our top priority if it were possible. But since the 70s and 60s, they've become highly encumbered with similar conservation easements, homes, neighborhoods, businesses. If there is maybe a mile where you can parallel an existing transmission line, you still have to jog out to avoid what maybe has been built up along the section to the north. And by doing that, then you're risking creating islands and really boxing people in who may live closer to those existing transmission lines, if that makes sense. So wide study area at first, mapping all of the data, looking at the constraints, trying to find routing opportunities, and really that's what led us to the 8 and 9 counties of our original routes.
And then I'll have one more, Mr. Chair. Can you speak to the fairness of this? Because I think there's a general consensus that this is being built for data centers that aren't near us, that we may get some benefit if we're ChatGPTing, but that we're seeing rate increases, we're seeing very wealthy companies standing on the backs of our citizens. And we feel like and I would just like you to speak, because I'm not sure if that's a myth or if that's a fact. And I'd like to know, how are they paying their fair share?
Sure. Very fair question. As a bill payer myself, I want to make sure that big industry is paying their fair share. From a Dominion Energy perspective and our joint venture through Valley Link, it really is about how we go about building out the infrastructure. We know there's going to be impacts that we can't avoid, so we go about minimizing those impacts. our responsibility to the Commonwealth and to our customers to provide a reliable, affordable, and increasingly clean energy mix for their use. And so our obligation to serve matched with our obligation to provide reliable power gets us here today. We can't ignore the load growth and we can't ignore the reliability concerns on the grid. That's our job to keep the lights on. So then it goes about how do you do that, especially when it comes to who pays for it. Over the last 5 or 10 years, as data centers have built up in Virginia, the rates for residential on the transmission, on how transmission's paid for, has gone down 17% on the residential companies and 17% on the data center companies. Moving forward, there's been a lot of concern around, well, how do you keep it fair, especially if you're building out a lot of generation? That's why when we went through our last rate case, we separated out high load customers into their own rate class, so that it's very visible as to what is being allocated to that class of customers. So that's going to be primarily data centers. But we've also now instituted a lot of protections for residential customers as data centers sign their contracts. It's demand minimum, so if they don't ramp up into their load, let's say that they're asking for 100 megawatts and they only use 50 megawatts, well, they're going to pay for 100 megawatts whether they use it or not. That protects residential and the build out of generation. We have 14-year protection plan, so if a data center leaves our service territory after 5 years, they still have to pay the rest of their contract for the remaining 11 years, again, so that the stranded costs are not borne by the other customers in our service territory. So that's some of the protections that we've started with. The independent auditor of the General Assembly has said that data centers are paying their fair share. I think the question is, how do they pay their fairer share moving forward? And so we put into some of those protections, and then we'll probably go forward into the State Corporation Commission as we learn more about how that rate class is being allocated to define more protections for customers moving forward. So we've done a lot now. That's not to say that more is not going to be done in the future.
Mr. Chairman, full disclosure, I've had some help in composing these questions, and they're both rate related, as Mr. Spoonhour's were, but there's a FERC order number 1920 that you all may be familiar with, and there are 7 specific benefits on the long-term regional transmission facilities that you're supposed to predict out over 20 years. I'm not going to read those 7 just because I'm not, but how can you commit or validate or share that this is going to be done properly and that the ratepayer is not going to get saddled with this? Has this analysis been done? Has the Order 1920 been conducted? And are we as residential ratepayers protected? And after that, I'm going to ask about the abandoned plant incentive.
Sure,
that'll come part 2.
Okay, part 2, we'll see how we go on that one. On part 1, FERC 1920 hasn't been codified yet, so it's not final. It's still being reviewed and litigated at the FERC level. So the way that the FERC orders work is that the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission comes up with an order. PJM, as a regional transmission operator, has to institute that FERC order. What we've been referring to as PJM open windows actually came from the number FERC 1000, which instituted competitive transmission process. So that's how PJM institutes FERC Order 1000. FERC Order 1920 would be on the onus of PJM to figure out how its transmission owners comply with 1920. But 1920 hasn't been codified yet, so there's no requirements on those sort of criteria in which they've outlined. But I will say that the long-term planning process that 1920 contemplates is exactly what we're trying to do under the current construct of the competitive open window process. PJM has typically only looked 5 years out. We talked about in 2024, they did an 8-year sensitivity just to make sure that the 5-year case and the solutions were durable through 8 years. but really looked at the needs in the 5-year case, so in 2029. Last year was the first year PJM actually did a long-term plan, which in that instance went out to 2032. So now we have reliability projects going out to 2032, but PJM forecasts is out 15 to 20 years. Our generation integrated resource plan now goes out to 20 years. FERC 1920 is contemplating more of a build plan in that 15 to 20 year time frame. PJM has landed more on the more certain time frame of 5 to 8 years, because we know that's sort of more certain than what could happen in 15 or 20 years. So we'll see how 1920 gets operationalized, but that's what we're trying to do, especially as we try to plan longer term and get ahead of the load growth that we're seeing.
Okay, so 1920 is not yet a requirement, but it's soon to become one. Is that a good?
We'll see how it goes. There's a lot of perspective, and so it's being heavily debated and challenged at the federal level.
All right, so am I correct then that FERC has granted Valley Link 100% abandoned plant incentive, 100% CWIP incentive, a pre-commercial incentive, and a conditional 50 basis point RTO participation adder? And how are those going to affect my rate bill?
So I don't think we've landed on the 50 basis points quite yet. That's still under settlement negotiation. On the other items, yes, that's correct. As part of Valley Link registering as a transmission operator, it has to go through the FERC process, just like Dominion Energy did. It goes and petitions what it feels is reasonable from a business perspective. One of those things is abandonment. So, for instance, if something were to happen, we couldn't get a permit that we needed to construct the project, and for whatever reason we have to walk away from the project, we wanted to have assurance that we could get recovery from the expenses put forward in that effort. So that's what abandonment talks about. And the other ones are sort of accounting mechanisms in how we account for expenditures through construction. Again, but the full cost recovery formula is still under settlement with FERC, so that's not final yet.
All right, where I'm going with this is that this is being done to benefit, I'm going to shorthand it, the data centers in Northern Virginia. And so you do, for whatever unfortunate reason, have a walkaway. How much is a Goochland ratepayer going to be on the line for something that doesn't happen? So if something's abandoned, how is an individual homeowner going to pay for that abandonment guarantee?
Sure. So one, I'll just challenge that the need is for all of us. We all benefit from the transmission grid. The needs are driven by a lot of data center growth coming down the corridor we talked about. Other counties, Spotsylvania, Culpeper, Louisa, Henrico, Chesterfield, Mecklenburg, they're all incentivizing and approving data center growth. So as Rob said, it's not just Northern Virginia alone. They have a lot of their own transmission projects right now in flight. But this project is for the benefit of all of us, even if the driver is development coming down the I-95 corridor and generation retirements outside of Virginia. The way that it works is, again, once FERC approves the recovery mechanism for those expenses, we'll understand better how it's allocated across PJM members.
So in other words, we don't know.
It's not, well, we do know that sort of the mechanism and how PJM allocates these costs. So in a project like this, they use a 50-50 split. And so they'll say 50% goes to the region it benefits. In this case, it would be the sort of Dominion Energy, Virginia. And then 50% of it would be allocated across PJM members. A benefit of being a member of PJM is that it's shared benefits across their 13-state territory. And so how that mechanism is that we are currently paying for projects across PJM as bill payers. And so how that mix goes will really depend on how FERC identifies what the recovery mechanism is. So I can't give you the answer other than the fact that it will be recovered by customers. To what degree, we don't quite know. We'll get to a final proposed cost once we get to the State Corporation Commission. A proposed cost of the project is based on the routing and the engineering, so we don't quite know what that's going to be yet because we don't have a proposed route yet. Initial estimates for this project alone was about $1 billion. We'll see if that floats either north or south of that number, but then how that allocates is really, first, FERC needs to determine what our recovery mechanism is, and then how PJM allocates that to its members.
So 50% of $1 billion would be Dominion's responsibility. Am I interpreting that properly?
For back of the envelope, I think that's fair.
I've got one here. And then, so within that 50%, how much would go to the high demand users, i.e. data centers, and how much would go to Jonathan Lyle residential ratepayer?
Right, so the cost allocation method first is determined by the State Corporation Commission. And so that's when I was talking about the
Okay.
residential customers on the transmission usage has gone down 17% as the usage of that grid asset by large customers has gone up 17%. So the allocation will be based on whatever the mechanism is judged by the State Corporation Commission at the time we go in for recovery of it. So right now, the rates could change for those customer classes by the time we put this in and start recovering in the 2030 or 2031 timeframe. So again, I'm not trying to skirt the answer. It's just that it's a hard answer to define. I'm just trying to give you the formula in which it's going to be defined.
And I appreciate that, but am I okay in assuming my rate's not going to go down?
Given the amount of projects we have across the board of Dominion, again, to meet those demands, again, I'll just say it, including the transmission line here in Goochland for Eli Lilly, those all contribute to the dynamics of our bill, whether they go up or down. Again, these are 30-year assets, and so as we put new assets on the bill, some assets are rolling off. So could it go up $1 or 50 cents? It really depends on what rolls in and rolls off. But I think it's safe to assume that bills will be impacted, but what degree, we have to manage that as a utility.
And that's fair, and I appreciate it. And I've lived in this county 36 years and still do not have a home generator because I have great faith that Dominion is going to keep my lights on, so.
Appreciate that.
You all set?
I'm done, yeah, thanks.
All right, everyone. Thank you, Valley Link and Dominion.
Thank you.
All right, so we are going to go ahead and transition into the citizen comment period. So, Dr. Raley, if you would.
Thank you, Mr. Christie. So as we begin our public comment process this evening, we certainly want to stress the importance of professional and respectful conduct as we have done this evening and engage in this important work in our community. So as public speakers make comments tonight, please direct your comments to the board, not to the individual audience members or other attendees. So we have many speakers who have already signed up, and we want to make sure that everyone's voice is heard and we can run an efficient public comment period this evening. So given this goal, we ask that the audience refrains from applause, call-outs, or other disruptions in between speakers, because ultimately that may result in the need for a recess that will ultimately delay our public comment and lengthen our meeting. So speakers will have 3 minutes to speak. There is a timer that's on the screen in front of you. So as you come forward, we ask that you state your name and address when you begin your remarks. Time may be extended up to 10 minutes total, depending on the number of citizens who cede their time to the speaker. So again, the timer is up front. Depending on 3 minutes, or if somebody cedes to you, it will adjust, and you can see that in front of you. And we do ask that you stick to your allocated time. So our Deputy Clerk, Lisa Biskiewicz, will be calling out multiple names in a row. As she calls your name, please come to the front row. We have plenty of seats here and here. Come forward, and then from there, in the order that your name is called, you can go to either microphone. You can make your choice there. So, Mr. Christie, I think that's all set.
All right. Citizen comment period is now open. So, Ms. Bekowitz, please call the first group of speakers who have signed up.
Christy Payne, Rose Lebo, Brenda Ahmed, Kerman Payne, Candace Chavis, Gardner Henderson, Teresa Henderson. If you all could move forward to the seating.
Testing. My name is Rose Lebo. I live at 2274 Chapel Hill Road, Goochland, Virginia, 23063. I cede my time to Christy Payne.
My name is Brenda Ahmed. I live at 1425 Sergeant Road, Crozier, Virginia, 23039. I cede my time to Christy Payne.
My name is Kerman Payne. I live at 4630 Three Chop Road, Gum Spring, Virginia. I cede my time to Christy Payne.
Good evening. My name is Christy Payne. I live at 4630 Three Chop Road, Gum Spring, Virginia. Tonight, I want to address something that should concern every citizen in this county, along with the other 8 counties impacted by the Joshua Falls to Yeet project. Over the last 2 months, citizens of Goochland have spent countless hours researching, organizing, attending meetings, studying maps, speaking with experts, documenting impacts, and trying to understand the true scope of the Valley Link project. And now, suddenly, the routes have changed drastically. Entire proposed corridors through Goochland appear reduced or removed from the latest maps. That alone tells us something important. Citizen involvement matters. Public pressure matters. Local governments speaking up matters. Because billion-dollar utility companies do not dramatically redraw major transmission corridors unless something forced them to reconsider. But tonight, I'm asking the board and Valley Link an even bigger question. If the project changed that much already, what else is changing behind the scenes? Citizens recently uncovered something deeply troubling. The Joshua Falls to Yeet transmission line no longer appears to actually begin at the existing Joshua Falls substation. Instead, the map now appears to originate from a separate 136-acre parcel nearby. Now, Dominion itself has acknowledged that due to space constraints, an existing Joshua Falls station is proposed to be relocated under a separate Appalachian Power filing before the SEC. That raises enormous questions. Is this now a brand new mega substation project, a switching station, a future expansion hub? And if so, why was the public repeatedly told that this was simply Joshua Falls to Yeet? Because citizens are beginning to feel like we're uncovering pieces of this project one layer at a time, instead of being given the full picture up front. Utilities do not need 765 kV infrastructure, giant substations, switching yards, staging areas, and massive transmission corridors for small local upgrades. This is regional infrastructure. This is industrial-scale energy expansion. And many Virginians are asking whether communities like ours being asked to sacrifice homes, farms, forests, history, and private property rights to support unchecked growth elsewhere. People are not angry simply because of a line on a map. People are angry because they feel the scope keeps growing while the explanations keep shrinking. 1 week, citizens are told it's just a transmission line, then suddenly there may be another major substation, another parcel, another facility, another SEC filing, another footprint, another industrial corridor. And every time citizens discover new information themselves, instead of hearing transparently from Valley Link, public confidence erodes further. The latest revelation also raises serious procedural concerns. The original PJM approval reportedly assumed expansion of the existing Joshua Falls substation. Now citizens are learning the starting point may be relocated. The mileage has changed. The Appalachian Power portion has nearly disappeared, and the separate SEC filings may now be required for interconnected infrastructure that depends on one another to function. Citizens deserve to understand how a project can continue moving forward as one approved transmission project while critical endpoint facilities remain unsettled, relocated, or subject to separate approval proceedings. If the transmission line and these newly identified substations are functionally dependent on one another, the public deserves to understand why they may be pursued through separate filings. Splitting interconnected infrastructure into separate proceedings makes it harder for the public and frankly, harder for local government to evaluate the true impact of the project. People should not have to piece together critical infrastructure plans from scattered maps, filings, Transmission Expansion Advisory Committee documents, and independent analysis. Citizens are also asking important questions about the intentions of land that connected the newly identified parcels in western Goochland. I know that this has already been mentioned briefly this evening. According to verified documents, a memorandum option in which mentions 10 parcels totaling 1,100 acres were secured by Dominion Energy in December of 2022, and it does have an expiration date of December 2027. The memorandum option raises additional concerns about whether land acquisition and future infrastructure plans are far beyond what has been publicly discussed. If these parcels are being positioned for future expansion, switching facilities, or broader transmission development, the public deserves to know now, not years later after the decision has already been made. Tonight, I want to thank this board for standing with the citizens of Goochland, for passing resolutions, for funding independent review, for creating opportunities for citizens to organize and communicate, for refusing to simply tell residents, file your comments with the SCC and hope for the best. Thank you. I'll keep reading.
Thank you, Ms. Payne. Oh, go ahead.
Because the truth is, local leadership matters. And tonight, I respectfully ask this board to continue demanding answers, demand clarity, demand full disclosure of all substations, switching stations, staging areas, access roads, future expansion plans connected to this project. Demand the citizens and local government receive the complete picture before PJM votes on major scope changes and before multiple SEC filings begin moving independently through the system. Because citizens deserve to know the full footprint before the SEC process advances further. Not pieces of it, not revisions after the fact, not after major approvals have already moved forward. Not one surprise at a time. The people of Goochland are paying attention now. We are no longer just looking at lines on a map. We are looking at the long-term future of our beautiful, precious county. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Payne. Let me remind everyone, let's maintain decorum to keep the process moving along.
Who is next?
Gardner Henderson, 4494 Three Chop Road, Gum Spring. I cede my time to Teresa Henderson.
Hi, Candace Chavez, 4615 Three Chopped Road, Gum Spring. I cede my time to Terry Henderson.
Harrison Chavez, 4615 Three Chop Road, Gum Spring, Virginia. I cede my time to Teresa, without an H, Henderson.
Thank you. Good evening. I am Teresa Henderson. I live at 4494 Three Chopped Road here in Goochland. And I want to thank you, the Goochland Board of Supervisors, for hosting this important event. The residents in this county are very proud of how strong you are, how you are not afraid to express your opinion, and equally important, how you have funded our advocacy and legal representation in this fight against the monstrosity of the proposed Valley Link 765 kV overhead transmission line. Thank you for your support. We know you will continue to fight through. We gather on the cusp of the 250th anniversary of our country's independence. And as we stand together, I don't know if I'm live or not.
Check your mic.
Can you hear me? I didn't think so. This doesn't count in my minutes, does it? Okay. Okay.
Ms. Bekowitz, can we restart her time?
We did.
Okay, how's this? A little better? A lot better.
Perfect.
Okay. We gather on the cusp of our 250th anniversary of our country's independence. As we stand together here today in Virginia, it is important to remember our forefathers and reflect upon how they might have viewed this transmission project. On October 28, 1785, more than 250 years ago, Thomas Jefferson wrote in his letter to James Madison, "The small landholders are the most precious part of a state." He argued that the widespread private land ownership, specifically for small-scale farmers, was essential for a virtuous, independent, and free republic, considering them the most valuable citizens. If Thomas Jefferson were standing on the hillside of Monticello, peering east, he would be appalled at the vision of what was being proposed. Tonight, I would like to prove out three things. First, the line destroys rural Virginia, dramatically impacts the farmers in all 9 counties, and is egregious and driven by financial motives. Second, this line is not necessary. And third, the citizens of Goochland will fight this fight along with you, the Board of Supervisors, and citizens of all 9 counties to the very end to preserve what is just and right and to protect the citizens of these 9 counties. Let's get to the facts and understand the motives. Who is Valley Link? Rob was nice enough to describe the shell company with our called Valley Link with no employees. It's Dominion, First Energy Transmission, and TransSource, which is really AEP. Now, Valley Link is currently advocating 2 very large 765 lines. One is Josh Paul Yeats. We know that one. We're all intimately familiar with it. And the second one he mentioned also is Valley North, another 765 kV overhead transmission line between Putnam, West Virginia, through Frederick Clark and Loudoun County in Virginia, and ending up in Charles County, Maryland. So first of all, this line destroys rural Virginia, dramatically impacts the farmers in all 9 counties, and is egregious and driven by financial motives. There could not be a more beautiful set of farms, hillsides, important battlefields, historically significant places, churches, schools, cemeteries, and homes here in the Virginia Piedmont region. The overhead line would visually and economically eviscerate rural Virginia, scarring the land and the people's lives who call this home. Once the scarring has happened, there is no turning back time. There are massive financial gains for each of the Valley Link partners, with investors and utilities seeking to profit from the AI boom. Let's talk about how each one of the partners profit. Dominion is in play as an acquisition target by NextEra. NextEra Investor Relations page has a slide deck outlining why Dominion. It's the fastest growing PJM, largely driven by data centers. NextEra and FPL's large load pipeline of 81 gigawatts would grow by 62% with the addition of Dominion's 51 gigawatt large load pipeline. Shareholders of the 2 merged companies would enjoy the following economic gains: a 12.5% increase in long-term adjusted EPS CAGR target, 10% increase in rate-based growth, 14% growth in regulated business mix, 12.5% increase in operating cash flow growth target, and geographical diversification. Dominion has every incentive not to give up on this line when it sees it as a critical component of their NextEra acquisition valuation. Next, let's talk about First Energy. As a transmission operator, First Energy sees both Valley Link proposed lines as a final opportunity to link stranded assets in Ohio. This would be a large expansion of the market and significant additional revenue to them. And finally, the third player, AEP. Joshua Falls Substation is owned and operated by Appalachian Power, which is a subsidiary of AEP. They would like to extract the power of their owned assets. AEP is the leader in development, operation, and ownership of 765 kV technology and is looking to expand their existing 765 kV footprint, which links Indiana, Ohio, and West Virginia into Virginia for a total of over 2,200 miles. This is their technology, which was introduced in 1968, and they have a vested interest in perpetuating it. Now let's talk about my second point. The 765K overhead transmission line is no longer necessary due to outdated facts and figures that do not reflect the needs of Virginians today. The submission to PJM for these lines was based on projected needs predicated upon hyperscale build-out and exponential growth in data centers in Virginia. Valley Link's submission was back 2 years ago in the summer of 2024, and the data which supported their proposal submission dates back even further. Today, the world has awakened and is seeing the dramatic impacts data centers have on our world. Environmental warming, intense energy demands, enormous water usage for cooling, sound pollution, vibration impacts, hazardous air and noise pollution from backup diesel generators, reduced water quality, excessive light pollution, reduced nearby residential property values, questionable job creation, questionable locality tax revenue due to rapid depreciation. The entire U.S. has awakened and is seeing the ramification and detriments of data centers. Now that Virginians understand the pitfalls of data centers, there are conditional use permits and comprehensive plans that are being rewritten across all counties to slow down data center growth and approach it in a meaningful manner. The usage assumptions submitted to the PJM to demonstrate the need are no longer valid. At the Culpeper BOS meeting, Lane Carr from Dominion stated the following: they, Dominion, have to prove the need. They have to prove that the proposed route that they bring forward minimizes impacts to the extent practicable, and that SCC currently only has jurisdiction over the transmission line. They do not trump local zoning of the localities. In other words, Culpeper has the right to say no to the substation. Dominion will reassess their 2023-24 assumptions for this transmission line to try to prove the necessity when they submit their proposal to the SCC. They should keep 2 key points in mind, and they have the time to effectuate these points. They should honor the request of Governor Spanberger's SB 497 and HB 889 bills, which were signed into law on March 31st of 2026, which calls for the prioritization of the siting of new transmission lines in existing easements versus greenfield operations. Dominion should also look to the future of technology and national security and create a competing partnership which would not include AEP, which proposes HVDC technology, which is now cost-effective, especially through existing easements. According to the Department of Energy, in a paper they authored in September of 23 titled Connecting the Country with HVDC, the break-even distance is 124 miles. And since then, technology advancements have reduced this distance even further, making it a viable option at a similar or lower cost. So when Rob Richardson, the spokesperson from Dominion, told the Culpeper BOS that the cost to take this underground was 7 to 10 times more expensive, he could not have been referring to the HVDC option and was obfuscating the Culpeper Board of Supervisors' interest in clarification of their options. Alternatively, they could place the generation near the site they need to in Northern Virginia.
I'm sorry, ma'am, but that's your time.
Okay. I would like to leave with one positive note, and that is that I believe that Dominion and Valley Link have the power to do the right thing, and we look forward to helping them do that.
Thank you.
Diane Waters, Shirley Butler, Nancy Morrison, Annette Jones, Diane Halverson, Lee Halverson, John Adkins, Kathy Crockett. Please come forward.
My name is Nancy Morrison. I am residing at 5761 Community House Road, Goochland, Virginia, and I am ceding my time to Annette Jones.
Shirley Butler. I live at 3207 River Road West, number 37, Goochland, Virginia, and I cede my time to Annette Jones.
Good evening. My name is Annette Jones, and I live at 4841 Ash Grove Lane, Goochland, Virginia. Over the last 60 days of my life, the Joshua Falls to Yeet project has taken up a tremendous amount of my time and energy. I was faced with the fact that this project wouldn't only cause my home to significantly decrease in value, but it would forever change the only home I've ever known, Goochland County. All I knew was that I couldn't sit idly by and watch it all slip away without a fight. A group of Goochland citizens dedicated themselves to understanding the complexities of FERC and the SCC, mapping and analyzing the proposed transmission routes, the history Goochland offers, countless phone hours, going door to door to help inform the community, attending meetings, and much more. It took all of our determination and this board's dedication to hearing us. They made the resolution, completed the FERC filing, and most importantly, allocated $250,000 for legal fees to fight this destruction to get where we are today. We all have grown in understanding one another with the common goal of protecting Goochland, but also being an ally for the other 8 counties that are faced with the destruction this project poses. Although Goochland may be among the least affected counties in the current proposed routes, I have reviewed PJM's long-term planning documents, and in my opinion, we should not assume future projects will bypass us so easily. There are 2 new substation proposals that will be the corridor for the 765 line to travel through Goochland by the way of the Cunningham to Elmont transmission line. The Lodi 765 500 kV station, which will be located in Fluvanna, and the Vontae 765 500 kV Greenfield station that will be located in Hanover. Virginia Electric has already purchased 55.87 acres for the Vontae substation. The Carson to North Anna project that runs through Crozier to Orville will also connect into this substation. The implementation of this plan has already taken place. But understand, there are multiple substation proposals in PJM's long-term planning that will be the ribs to the Joshua Falls Yeet backbone project. So I ask, can a 765 kilovolt line and a 500 kilovolt line be stacked, or does it need its own right-of-way? It is also understood that just because those routes went away yesterday doesn't mean that they won't come back tomorrow. This is very concerning because in all of our research, we discovered that Virginia Electric has a memorandum of option on 10 different parcels totaling 1,106 acres in Goochland. That just so happens to be dissected by the existing Cunningham to Elmont 500 kilovolt transmission line. These properties have been leased with the option to buy since December of 2022. Is this to secure property in Goochland for a substation if the routes change? What are Dominion's intentions? I know this has been addressed tonight with a not now, but everyone needs to understand that does not leave later as a possibility, and as they said, for solar farms or another substation. Why does Valley Link and Dominion not talking about the significant risk with these extra high voltage transmission lines, such as the increased likelihood of lightning strikes on 160-foot transmission towers due to their height, wider structures, and elevated ground wires, the vulnerability of rural communities, the lack of public water infrastructure, where even a single spark could be catastrophic, the substantial costs local fire and rescue departments may face for specialized equipment, training, and emergency response capabilities related to transmission line incidents, safety concerns involving metal objects, tools, firearms, and medical devices such as pacemakers and metal implants near high voltage infrastructure. The lack of information that Dominion has provided to this point is a concern. What environmental impacts are associated with extra high voltage transmission corridors? We have all heard that these 160-foot towers and the highest voltage transmission lines in the United States are for the greater good. I stand before you all tonight and say that this data center hell that Virginia is living in is the driving force behind the Joshua Falls project that is trying to steal rural Virginia. Isn't about the greater good, it's about destroying it. Thank you.
Thank you. I'd like to also note that we did get the other microphone fixed.
My name is John Atkins. I live on 4725 Fleming Road. I was originally going to cede my time, but I haven't been inspired to speak by everyone here. I wanted to readdress what was said by Valley Link. They say that transmission lines and infrastructure is fundamental, not optional. But we all know they're not telling the whole truth in this situation, because we all know the real reason this Transit Valley Link line is being proposed and needed in the first place is to sacrifice rural Virginia for the sake of powering data centers in Northern Virginia. Data centers that are optional, not fundamental. Data centers that will cause our electric bills to increase more and more without any mercy or relief from Dominion Energy. Data centers that will threaten our watershed and pollute our neighborhoods just like Valley Link. Data centers like the ones the board has allowed within the Technology Overlay District, which the county is currently being sued for. Data centers like the one that will be built in my neighborhood's backyard in Shannon Hill, just down the road in neighboring Louisa County, which just so happens to be near where the Valley Link transmission line will cross into Goochland County and Louisa. I believe that we should all protect rural Virginia. Put our residents first, not data centers or Valley Link. To everyone here today, I beg of you to continue to be involved, engage, and oppose both Valley Link and data centers by any and all means necessary. God bless you all. Thank you for your time. I cede the rest of my time to Kathy Crockett.
I'm sorry, you've already spoken. You're unable to cede your time after you've spoken.
Okay, well then I guess I'm doing this really quick. My name is Kathy Crockett, 5888 Community House Road, Columbia, Virginia. I'd like to start by reading the Constitution of Virginia, Article 11, under Conservation. Natural resources and historic sites of the Commonwealth, to the end that the people have clean air, pure water, and the use and enjoyment of recreation of adequate public lands, water, and other natural resources, it shall be the policy of the Commonwealth to conserve, develop, and utilize its natural resources, public lands, its historic sites and buildings. Furthermore, shall the Commonwealth policy to protect its atmosphere, lands, and waters from pollution, impairment, or destruction for the benefit, enjoyment, and general welfare of the people of the Commonwealth. My proposal is for historic purposes in Goochland County, in the eastern or the western end. And just so that the people here from Valley Link understand, these are going to be put in my SCC filing. I have a map of Goochland County. There were so many spots for the mines and the historic gold belt that I couldn't even put them on a map. There were so many. Number two, a list of the largest gold mines in Goochland. There are 48. African American schools in Goochland County, 1910 to 1938. And the Historical Society was wonderful enough to give me the book of the grave sites and cemeteries in Goochland County. And if you can see, they are listed by name, place, family cemetery, and date of death. And there are this many in Goochland County that I am sure Valley Link has not taken into consideration on any of its lines. There are also historic churches, there's plantations. Robin Lynn, who is in charge of the Historical Society here in Goochland, has already responded to Valley Link on some of their queries and basically said, it's not good. You're going to be destroying something we can't get back if you put this line in. We have an historic county, not just in one area, the entire area. There are road designations that say this is a historic road. Most people don't know this. When Goochland County was founded, I have a relative that lived here in the 1700s. Most all the roads that are here in the county were wagon trails. We have history in every inch, and we need to protect it and preserve it. And if it's designated as a PUD, we need to make sure we keep it designated that way. Thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Diane Halverson. I reside at 12253 Bremner Ridge Circle in Manikin-Sabot, and I cede my time to my husband, Lee.
Greetings and salutations. My name is Lee Halverson. I live at 12253 Bremner Ridge Circle in Manikin-Sabot. I'm a friend of Goochland and a friend of Central Virginia. I appreciate the opportunity to comment on the proposed Valley Link 765 kV transmission project. Tonight, I want to focus on the cumulative impact concerns that I believe remain insufficiently addressed. First, this project should not be evaluated as an isolated transmission proposal, and you've heard that before, but this proposed corridor appears closely tied to accelerating industrial electrification and data center expansion across Central Virginia, or as the Dominion gentleman said, across the entire state. This distinction matters because the public deserves transparency regarding whether rural communities are being permanently transformed to accommodate projected hyperscale development. Secondly, I'm concerned that the routing analysis understates the cumulative land use impacts. The 765 corridor is effectively permanent industrial infrastructure. Transmission right-of-way clearing fragments current agricultural and forested land on a regional scale, not just our county. Once established, these corridors often become magnets for additional utility and data center expansion. For example, the 3 gigawatt natural gas power center proposed for Cumberland, combined with the data center proposals in Goochland and surrounding counties, point toward a broader industrial build-out across Central Virginia rather than a single infrastructure project. I'd ask specifically, has the cumulative impact analysis been performed along existing, proposed, and projected data center development? Has this project been evaluated in relation to concurrent rezoning and utility expansion proposals in all the counties, especially Goochland, and each of the counties' strategic and comprehensive plans? From the perspective of affected communities, this is not one project. It's the industrialization of rural land through overlapping energy and data infrastructure support all across the state, is what he said. Third, I remain concerned about corridor selection methodology, but others have talked about that. Fourth, regulators and all of us should consider long-term operational and environmental risks, not just the short-term construction risks. Large transmission corridors create permanent forest fragmentation, invasive species pathways, altered hydrology, which is important across our county, sedimentation risks, and decades of maintenance disturbance. The environmental review process should include robust analysis of watershed impacts, slope stability, wetland fragmentation, and long-term corridor maintenance under increasingly severe weather changes. The segmented approach used by Valley Link, by segments, 115 here, 100 here, appears to avoid a broader federal review, even though, viewed alongside PGM's long-term plans, a much larger transmission network expansion is clearly underway. Fifth, I want to echo the transparency and procedural fairness. Communities should not learn about infrastructure of this magnitude after root concepts are already substantially advanced, nor should residents have to reverse engineer the true drivers and long-term implications of these projects through FOIA requests and fragmented disclosures. If this infrastructure is intended to support hyperscale industrial demand in Northern Virginia and collateral expansion into Goochland, Fluvanna, and our other neighboring counties, the public deserves direct acknowledgement of that reality right now. The burden of regional growth should not fall disproportionately on rural landowners, established residential communities without the highest level of scrutiny, transparency, and mitigation. This should cause no harm. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hutchinson.
Mr. Chair, I'm going to call the last 10 names on the list, and I'm going to ask these speakers, please speak into the mic when you come forward. This is being recorded. Richard Karchman, Nayan Soma Sanandaram, I apologize if I mispronounced that, Katrina Dalton, Jan Kinney, Meredith Moses, Kevin Shoemaker, Julie Muniz, Peter Muniz, Paula Margolis, Amy Say. Please come forward.
My name is Richard Karchman. I live on a farm at 4451 Tapscott Road. It's in a conservation easement with the Virginia Department of Forestry. I was pretty amazed to look at the box that said constraints that was put up by Dominion Energy. It appeared to me there were two important constraints not mentioned. One was based on the Kelo versus New London U.S. Supreme Court decision in 2005 that allowed eminent domain over allowing for a shopping mall. This resulted in Virginia and a number of other states looking at this and saying, oh my God, and they passed a law with pretty much overwhelming support in the state of Virginia. And that law constrains the production or use that is not in the public need. And it says specifically what's excluded. Now, not being a lawyer, I can't speak to the details, but it's pretty clear that what this power line is intended to do does not provide for the public good. That's the first. The second piece of legislation that was passed is called the Environmental Justice Act. And it's a result of things being done to people who are either minorities or have low income. If you look at Goochland, District 1, where the line was supposed to go.
Please direct your comments to the board.
Oh, sorry. I'm sorry. They're much better looking than you, anyway.
I agree.
And District 1, where the line was supposed to go, fits the criteria that would exclude it based on this piece of legislation. It's law in Virginia. They can't do it. And it's based on the income. Now, this little T-shirt I'm wearing is the stuff I do in the community at Byrd Elementary, which is a Title I school. Title I means something, especially in the context, sorry. It's frightening. In the context of what's going on. So there's a threshold, and we exceed the threshold that would then not permit this power line to go through Goochland. Well, Goochland's sort of out of it, but the other counties need to pay attention to this and look to where this line is going to see if there's a violation of this environmental justice law. And then finally, Mr. Winfrey asked for some kind of commitment. My feeling is Dominion proposes, the state corporation disposes. We don't know what they're going to do. They can move the line anywhere they think is justified. So there is no guarantee here. So I think we need to keep, as Tom would say, our powder dry on this. Finally, the comment about health effects and safety. If it was so safe, IARC would list it as safe. It doesn't. It lists it as a possible carcinogen. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Everyone, please direct all your comments to the board. Thank you. Go ahead.
Good evening. Paula Margolis, 9432 Tesserae Way, Goochland 23238. I went to several of the meetings with public comment when you all were considering the TOD. I never heard anyone say, I want it. I never heard anyone say, bring it on. I expressed this at one of the later meetings where Supervisor Lyle and one other of you gentlemen, I don't remember which one, were there, but what they said was, we're here to listen, we're here to hear. And my comment was, I'm glad you're here to listen and hear. I hope you intend to act on what you hear. Obviously, that wasn't the case. Now that all but one of the supervisors voted for the TOD. They wanted to preserve the rural aspects of the county. Now that the rural aspects of the county are going to be impacted, suddenly there's all this concern that I'm hearing. I implore you to please take responsibility for your past actions. Repeal the TOD if that is possible. I know that a lot of is said that the power is going up to Northern Virginia, but if you're so concerned about your neighbors, why did you pass the TOD? Thank you.
Thank you.
Testing. Okay. My name is Katrina Dalton, and I live at 4621 Walton Road in northwestern Goochland. First, I want to thank the Board of Supervisors for listening to constituents and recognizing that our property rights matter in this fight against Valley Link. To Valley Link, I am concerned because rural Virginia does not want to be the extension cord for Northern Virginia's data centers. At an open house earlier this year, Valley Link representatives doggedly asserted that these lines are needed for the whole grid and that this project isn't, quote, to power data centers. Yet tonight, Mr. Richardson and others included data centers as the driving force for increasing Virginia's power supply. Our grid is not overworked by family homes, apartment complexes, or mom and pop businesses. It's overworked by the boom of data centers and their unquenchable thirst for power, water, and land. Yet this project disproportionately benefits Northern Virginia data centers and disproportionately harms the citizens of 9 rural counties. If the whole grid needs strengthening, then retrofit the existing corridors to minimize the impact on rural Virginia. But if the highest demand of power is in Northern Virginia, then the generation of power should be situated there, not through our rural counties. Nothing exists in a vacuum, and the Valley Link transmission line projects are all tied directly and indirectly to data centers and their overconsumption of resources. And we say no more. No to Valley Link. No to the destruction of our rural lands. Not here in Goochland, and not to our friends in Campbell, Appomattox, Buckingham, Fluvanna, Louisa, Orange, Spotsylvania, or Culpeper. We want them to find another way that will not harm our health and our land. To the supervisors present here tonight, Mr. Christie, Spoonhauer, Winfrey, and Lyle, I respectfully ask that you join us in urging the supervisors of Culpeper and Campbell counties to not approve the conditional use permits for Joshua Falls and Yates substations when they come before them. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Dalton.
I don't think I'm next, but okay. Board of Supervisors, hi, thank you. I appreciate this opportunity to speak. My name is Meredith Moses. I live at 4467 Halls Road, technically Mineral, Virginia, but it is Goochland. And I am here not as a school board member, but because we actually approved this memo to the FERC last month, and I think that it needs to be read as part of the record already, but I would like to read it here. Now, has probably been, well, based on what I've heard already, it's out of date, but I feel like it's probably still going to be pertinent in case the new proposal routes change. And also, whenever you hear Goochland, think Louisa, Fluvanna, Orange, Powhatan, places like that. So anyway, here we go. We, the school board of Goochland County Public Schools, write to express concerns about an opposition to the proposed routes of the Valley Link transmission line project, which would traverse rural and populated areas of Goochland County, as well as the surrounding counties of Fluvanna and Louisa. Of major concern to us is that one of the proposed routes would come in close proximity to an elementary school in the western portion of Goochland County. Nearly 300 students in pre-K through 5th grade will continue to attend this school for the foreseeable future. Documented health concerns associated with the 115-mile Joshua Falls Yeet 765 kilovolt high voltage transition lines associated with this project are of great concern to us. Responsive to studies of the medical effects of high voltage transmission lines on young children, we will not support this plan and request that alternate routes are developed. Additional concerns include noise pollution and pupil transportation disruptions during construction and future noise pollution and electromagnetic disruptions after construction. Rural western Goochland is home to farms and properties that have been part of families for generations. Our natural beauty and rural character distinguish Goochland County as a destination for families in Central Virginia. Furthermore, Goochland County Public Schools are predominantly funded locally rather than through state and federal revenues due to the relative wealth of our community. The risks of the Valley Link project include potential impact to property values that could prompt increased tax rates, diminished population, and an imposed transformation of the community's rural character. All of these risks are assumed without any apparent reward to Central Virginia or to our county. We are under the impression that although the original plans called for an extended planning period, that has now been fast-tracked to just a few months. Please take the time to consider all of the ramifications of this project on Central Virginia and thoughtfully consider the many proposed routes in the plan. Unfortunately for interested citizens, available maps and graphics are very difficult to interpret to ascertain individual roads and parcels. If transmission lines must ultimately be installed in Central Virginia, we urge you to take the path of least disruption in Central Virginia, or at least as far as possible from the schools. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Moses.
Good evening. I'm Jan Kenny, and I live at 4966 Tapscott Road. And 2 months ago, I attended your Board of Supervisors meeting. If you remember, I came to find out where your hearts lie. You remember that? Today, I know that your hearts lie with the citizens of this county. You are in lockstep with us. As Dr. Rayleigh said earlier, you stole my thunder, okay? You were in lockstep with us. You've listened. You've passed a formal resolution opposing the Valley Link project. You've allocated funds for oppositional resources. You've hired legal counsel, not just for counsel, but to be a part of the community for ongoing, you with me? Oppositional support now and in the future. You've formed an advocacy group, a committee with legal representation, county staff, and citizens. And to date, we've had 2 meetings with a focus on putting plans and systems in place to keep our community rural. Now, and for generations to come, regardless of lines and maps, we stand united together and with our neighboring counties. Thank you for caring for your people who are the heartbeat of our community.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Kevin Shoemaker. I live at 4825 Old Fredericksburg Road. I'm an electromagnetics engineer. I design radars and communications equipment. I've worked for several national labs and I'm currently a CTO of a radar system, of a radar company. My first question has to do with the transmission line, the notion that it's imperative, that it is a foundational, important system that has to be put in. I know a little bit about transmission lines from my work, and I know that they're lossy, meaning that if you put 1,000 volts into one end and you go 115 miles, you don't get 1,000 volts out, you get much less. And so they have to make the power station significantly larger to support something 115 miles away. So logically, we should put the systems that produce the power much closer to the data centers in this particular case, and use solar power and wind, because that's a lot more efficient. So I've mentioned that, and I also want to bring up Moore's Law, which is a technical thing from software development that says that every 18 months or 2 years, computational power doubles. So when you're using AI systems like I do quite a lot, you know that in 2 years that power is going to double. So the massive size of these data centers gives me pause. I don't understand why they need to be that large if the AI agents are so good today. So there's a question there. And then finally, these transmission lines, or AC, of course, 60 hertz, they radiate signals both electrically and magnetically. These signals are strong enough to be seen from space with satellites. That means that everything around them is somewhat, connected to it electromagnetically. In other words, there are effects for living things with this. With tractors or combines, that you're driving through this, what's known as a Faraday cage, so you have some coverage there, you have some protection, but outside walking around, or animals or bees, whatever, they're affected. So I question the radiation side of this because it's significant at 765,000 volts. And I question the transmission line, just the theory that it's even necessary. And I thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Julie Muniz, and I reside at 5315 Duval Road, Kent Store. Tonight, I should be cheering on my son as the Goochland High School lacrosse team has advanced to the playoffs. And as we speak, they're battling the Flucos over in Fluvanna. But I am not there because I am forced to be here to advocate for my land. It is just another example of how this proposed transmission line project has negatively impacted my life, and Dominion hasn't even filed a permit yet. While I am relieved that the new routes are less impactful to Goochland County, this is still a project not needed nor wanted by the people who live here. I have been to countless meetings and have heard so many heartbreaking stories. And yet a whole entire new group of people get to experience the same turmoil and stress that my family and I have been dealing with since March. I have received an unasked for education in all things related to transmission lines. I have subscribed to FERC dockets, read countless PJM documents, and SEC filings. And I stand before the board tonight to reiterate that I still utterly oppose this project on grounds of simple morality. It is morally unjust to take people's land with the goal of making a profit by selling electricity to data centers miles away. Because of this, I and many other residents have had to form Preserve Rural Virginia Coalition to educate residents and landowners and give a voice to those citizens. We are united and engaged and will be throughout this process. I'd like to end tonight by thanking the Goochland Board of Supervisors and Dr. Raley for both the support you have given us and the sensitivity and grace in which you have helped your residents. Thank you.
Thank you.
Peter Muniz, 5315 Duval Road, far western Goochland County. Virginia has 6,600 miles of high-power transmission lines. At 200-foot easements, that's about 1,600 acres, or 250 square miles of land currently with high-power transmission lines. And currently, local property owners pay the taxes on that land. To put the 250 square miles into context, Richmond City is 62 square miles and Goochland County is 289 square miles. This Dominion proposal is a completely new 119 miles. That's another 4.5 square miles of land taken from residents and more that is destroyed by right-of-way. On top of that, the SEC grants regulated returns on capital investment. Regulators guarantee that these monopolies an improved profit, a return on their investment of their infrastructure they build, allowing them steady, predictable profits of 10 to 12% annually. Guaranteed return on $1 billion in new transmission lines is $96 million in annual profit. Because of this, Dominion will make more money by building infrastructure than they do simply increasing sheer volume of electricity flowing through existing lines. While I would love to drive directly from my house to Charlotte, North Carolina, it doesn't mean that I can build a road directly there or directly anywhere I want to. There are already 6,600 linear miles of transmission lines in Virginia. Upgrade these lines and do what you need to do to invest properly in the business that you're running. Don't take land from residents. Dow Chemical just got a small modular nuclear reactor project approved in Texas. It's 320 megawatts of power plant. These projects need to be put where the power is needed. Northern Virginia produces less than 6% of the 107 million megawatt hours that are produced in Virginia, yet they are approving, as is Dominion, all of these data center projects. Virginia consumes 138 million megawatt hours annually. Just like with water, the communities that are targeting these tax dollars should have to provide the infrastructure. We don't just run water lines from Kentucky instead of building a tower with water locally. Data center requires 100 to 300 megawatts per data center. 100 megawatts will power 80 to 100,000 homes. There needs to be better discipline. Dominion needs to review all requests. They even have a web page dedicated to educating data centers on how to apply for planning and permission. If they're going to push and entice, they should also provide the resources that are already available by upgrading power lines and generating new power close to where it is needed. The system makes it too easy for Dominion to make power off of other people's properties with guaranteed rate of returns and infrastructure returns that causes them no grief, yet causes the residents of Virginia and the destruction of property. Thank you.
Thank you. Here we go.
I thought there was someone ahead of me, but maybe not. I am Amy C. I live at 876 Firehouse Drive, Louisa, Virginia. First, I do want to thank the board for opening up this opportunity to other counties to speak tonight. I live in rural Virginia where this proposed project could directly affect farms, families, and the landscape many of us have spent our lives caring for. Back in February, my family learned that our farm in Fluvanna County, which has been in our family since the 1940s, could be impacted by this project. Then yesterday, updated route maps were released, and now the home where I live in Louisa County is potentially impacted as well after the route has shifted closer to our property, along with the highest populated gated community in Louisa County. Most people understand the need of reliable electricity. We understand that growth and infrastructure matter. But understanding the need for electricity does not mean rural communities should simply accept being the path of least resistance. Have all reasonable alternatives truly been explored before placing 765 kilovolt transmission lines through productive farmland and rural communities? Because once towers of this scale are built, the impact is permanent. The character of these areas changes forever. At this time, even the Valley Link website shows shifting endpoints, including changes to the starting point in Campbell County, which no clearly defined beginning or end to these routes. And that raises an important question to many residents. What exactly are these routes connecting if they continue to change? Because right now, what this project seems to be connecting most effectively is the growing number of people across these counties who are becoming united in opposition of it. People here are not simply asking for better communication. Many of us are asking for these routes to be stopped altogether, and for alternative routes, especially options closer to the actual area of need in Northern Virginia, to be more seriously explored before it permanently impacting rural communities farther south. We're asking for fairness, we're asking for transparency, and we are asking decision makers to seriously consider routes that follow existing infrastructure and already disturbed corridors before cutting through farms, forests, and open countryside. Rural Virginia matters. Our farms matter. Our communities matter. And the people who live here deserve more than a rushed process and generalized answers or assurances. At the end of the day, the question is not whether electricity is important. The question is whether protecting rural communities is important too. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Bekowitz, have we made it through the,
Yes, sir.
okay. It is open for anyone else that wants to approach the microphone.
Good evening. My name is Dave Davis, and I live at 4333 Three Chop Road, Gum Spring, Virginia. I'd like to thank the Goochland Board of Supervisors for listening to their constituents. A lot of what we have heard here tonight is speculative, or at best, take our word for it. And we've heard this before, and I don't know if you remember, but you have to pass the bill first before you know what's in it. If you remember that, that was many years ago, said by Nancy Pelosi. You have to pass the bill first before you know what's in it. And we see charts and presentations and promises, and all of that can be erased instantly. And I'll give you an example. Seeing a picture of Niagara Falls is one thing, but actually getting on the boat in the middle of Niagara Falls is something else altogether. So we can see a picture of a tower. That's exciting on a PowerPoint, but having it in our backyard, that's the real deal. This project will affect every single Virginian, every single Virginian. But I'm most importantly, I'm concerned about the potential sale of Dominion Power to Next Era, which is a Florida-based company, for $66 billion. Will Virginians lose their voice? Because typically what happens, there's a famous saying, there's no such thing as a free lunch, right? There's no such thing as a free lunch. And the term tonight that was used was foundational infrastructure. Foundational infrastructure costs are always passed to the consumer through taxes, increased rates, fees, and of course even increased sales costs of a certain product. And that's concerning to me because what happens is those costs typically affect all of us in some form or another. And also, mergers and acquisitions typically lead to layoffs. So a lot of promises that we may be promised tonight or have heard in the past, the people that made those promises, they might lose their job as Dominion Power is absolved. Now, we've heard that, well, certain percentage is going to be Virginia Power. They're still going to be employed, and they're going to have certain percentage ownership in Virginia. But ultimately, will Virginians lose their voice? You know, I was born and raised in Virginia. I know a lot about growth. My family owned a 70-acre farm in Short Pump, Virginia. Well, look at Short Pump, right? So the point is, I want to thank you for standing up for us. But I also am very concerned about the future of Virginia. Because if we allow a state, Florida, and another company based out of Florida to take away our voice, then what leaves us the future? So I just want to say thank you again for giving us the time to speak.
Thank you. While we wait, everyone who still wishes to speak, go ahead and come on down to the front row, and you guys can go ahead and start.
Thank you for allowing other counties to speak. I'm Cynthia Oliver. We have a farm in Buckingham County, 138 years in my husband's family, 300 acres, and the first proposal was coming directly through our driveway, through our hayfield, into one of the 18 watersheds in Buckingham County that helps Richmond to not be flooded. Lynn and Rob were wonderful to come out to our farm and were very gracious speaking with us about it. And I don't want to cry again, but they knew just how heartbroken we were. The second proposal, our property is divided by Route 656. It's on both sides. So the second one is still coming through there. It moves substantially over, and it's still higher than our watershed, which the chemicals and things where they kill the vegetation will come to our watershed. Our watershed, after it goes to the next owner's property, the Joneses, has all kind of mussels and things, showing how clear and great the water is. The proposal, the second one they have also goes, we're Muddy Creek 1, and then Muddy Creek 2, it goes through that neighbor. In our area, there's 8 to 9 Century Farms, and so I'm encouraging all of them to send in the Century Farm information. And Dominion has been wonderful to us, I just wanted to say. Also, I just didn't know if the board had looked at the QTS and PMG lawsuits in Pennsylvania and Maryland. There's tons of information in that. And I also don't understand why, if I'm correct, PMJ is the only person that gets to say what's critical in 13 states and tell us, that electric vehicles are so important. When they're down 29%, the tax incentives are gone and people are buying used ones. And I agree with everyone else's comments in here, and why are we not really getting any benefit, and it's really gonna ruin rural Virginia completely. And I worry about the chemicals and getting to the James River and to the Chesapeake Bay. Our watershed is Muddy Creek. It runs into Slate River. Slate River goes into the James River, and we all know where everything goes from there. And the watersheds in Buckingham, there's 18, there's one in Cumberland, and they're all done by the Corps of Engineers. Ours was built in 1963. And thank you all for listening. I'm sorry, Dominion, that none of us want this. And thank you again for working with us and our family. We certainly do appreciate it. Thank you, Board.
Thank you.
And I also have property in Goochland, so I need to look now to see if it's going through our Goochland property. Yay!
Thank you.
I'm Lena Taylor. I live at 4250 Haydensville Farms Road in Haydensville. And I don't know how many people are aware of this, but that Virginia is the data capital of the world. And this line is not going to benefit us in any way whatsoever. It's all going back up to the northern neck. Let other states have some of these data companies. We have enough. The pollution, the water use, the power usage, and our fees may go down, but then we get all of these charges put on to our electric bills, which raises them continuously, and we pay enough as it is. So, no thank you. Thank you for what you guys are doing.
Thank you.
My name is Martha Reynolds. I live at 4706 Payne Road in Columbia, Virginia, which is in Goochland County. And I would like to ask the board to please look back at the questions that you asked the Valley Link representatives, because many of them were not answered tonight. There was a lot of congratulations on having good questions, but some of those questions didn't get answered. For example, they never answered your question about the use of elevated equipment under the lines. They never answered questions directly about the safety. They really haven't broken down the costs that are projected to require these increases to the power line. For example, that 2035 projection, it'd be really handy to have that broken down by what's consuming that projected power. How much of that is projected to be development and growth of individual homes? How much is projected for the development of data centers, for example? So let's see some transparency. Let's break that big yellow column down into what's really driving this, and I think we'll all know exactly what it is. But please do ask them to answer the questions you asked, because they didn't always do it. And I would like to have those answers made available to us in the public. So perhaps you could post what they tell you on the Goochland website so we can actually hear the answers to some of those questions.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Kelly Crockett. I am a property owner in District 1. But actually, a few months ago, I got a letter.
You need to actually state your name and address for the record.
Okay, so I own property at 3148 Davis Mill Road in Goochland. I actually live in Powhatan. And a few months ago, I got a letter from Valley Link saying that my property in Powhatan was potentially going to be affected by this project. And we're not talking about Powhatan, but it's not even on that map. And it seems that Powhatan is being left out of this conversation. And I just wanted to butt in and speak up for Powhatan, because we're talking about things that are not being brought to the public's attention, we're not being transparent about. Why did I receive that letter in Powhatan County and it's not even outlined up there? That's my question. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. I'm Rob Williamson, 2262 Wheatlands Drive, Mannequin-Sabot, Virginia. I got several takeaways from this meeting tonight. I'm only going to speak to two. One is, each one of you kept asking for assurances in many different areas. You got none. So there are no definites with the final product. And there are no assurances that this group can give you that will make you feel better and make the citizens feel more protected. The second item is, there was a specific statement about the route that's being chosen is based on the ability for expansion to provide service to potential businesses. Since it goes through a portion of Goochland, that expansion is going to be into Goochland. And it's going to be items with big ticket electrical needs. So your work is only beginning today in looking at potential impacts. When this item goes through, what else is going to be in the pipeline that's going to be targeted for Goochland? And what we need more specific protections in our ordinances, our comprehensive plan on these types of potential impacts. And some will be desirable, but many will not. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, is there anyone else? Okay, go ahead, ma'am.
Hello, my name is Sarah Hampton. I live at 1475 Rockcastle Road, Goochland, Virginia. I am a lifelong resident of this county, a mother and someone who deeply cares about the future of our community, and I appreciate the opportunity to speak tonight. My primary concern is the long-term impact this project will have on the people who live here, particularly our children and future generations. While we're told this project is necessary, many residents still have unanswered questions regarding potential health effects, property impacts, environmental consequences, and quality of life for those living near the transmission lines. I'm not standing here claiming to have all the answers, but I'm asking for transparency and accountability. My understanding is that the proposed route has changed once. If that can be moved, what assurances do residents have that it will not be moved again in the future? While protections exist for property owners and communities who may suddenly find themselves affected by a different route, the representatives tonight describe this project as part of a larger backbone infrastructure system. If that's the case, What guarantees do we have that this corridor will not be expanded in the future? What begins as one project today could potentially become something much larger tomorrow. Many of us here tonight choose to live in this county because of its rural character, its history, its natural beauty, and the opportunity to raise our families here in rural Virginia. Once infrastructure of this scale is built, the impacts will last for generations. I believe residents deserve clear answers to a few questions that have been asked here tonight, and I respectfully ask this board to proceed with caution, to prioritize the voices of the citizens who live here, and to ensure that any decision made is based on thorough, independent review rather than assumptions or promises that may and probably will change over time. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Steve Kinney, 4966 Tabscott Road, Kent Store, Virginia. Just a quick statement. I did see where these lines, you can stand underneath of them with a fluorescent light bulb and it lights up. Haven't done it myself, but my question to everyone here, why are the power lines 160 feet tall? Are they safe? Are they way up to keep them away from animals, people? Do they really need? I've got power lines near my house. They're not 160 feet tall, and you cannot stand under them with a fluorescent light bulb and it lights up. So just something to ponder on, to piggyback off my friend Richard on the health issues surrounding this. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Debbie Bowman, 5436 Duval Road, Kent Store, Virginia. My family has 65 acres. I just started this week moving into my parents' home. They have both passed away. And last night, I found out the blue line is going right behind the whole length of our property line. We already have Dominion's power line all the way across the right-hand side of our property. I don't feel like my family's going to be safe in the future. My father's family's been here for close to 200 years. They graduated from Goochland. I graduated from Goochland. And it's just breaking my heart that all that they worked for all their lives is going to be destroyed by power lines on 2 sides of 4 sides of our property. I just want you to think about how many other power lines are going to go through beside people's homes. Will I be boxed in eventually? It just breaks my heart. I hope you think about everybody as individuals and their homes and children in the future. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else? All right, so now I will turn it back over to Dominion for their closing remarks this evening. Well, actually, I'll close citizen comment. And now I turn it over to Dominion.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, Dr. Raley, a simple thank you tonight for the opportunity to address you, to answer your questions, to address the citizens. I want to echo something that my colleague Greg said here tonight. All of us here representing
Dominion, representing Valley Link, Greg, Caitlin, Lane, Adam, Craig, myself, we all live here. We live in Central Virginia. We live in Goochland, we live in Henrico, we live in Hanover, we live in the city of Richmond. Like your citizens tonight, we also care about what happens here because we are your neighbors. What I heard here tonight, comments from residents who care deeply about their land, their neighbors, their county or counties, did not surprise me. These are the types of comments we heard from residents at our 9 meetings in 9 counties in March. We expect to hear similar comments from residents at the 9 community meetings that we're planning in June. So I appreciated hearing those comments, and some of the folks that were here tonight are folks that we've met before and folks that we've talked to. I just want to say that where are my notes here? We hope that that many of you here tonight will come see us at the Goochland Sports Complex on June 16th. Bring your questions that you had here, some of the questions you had here tonight. Following the meetings in June, we will reconvene. We will take those comments. Elaine and her team and the engineers will look at what other additional refinements can be made to the routes that are on the GeoVoice tool today. And then we have plans, although not a firm date, to have a virtual meeting and address the community with the preferred route prior to submitting that route to the State Corporation Commission. So sometime this fall, we would plan for a virtual meeting and share what we choose as a preferred route and the route that we prefer, the route that we are planning to submit to the State Corporation Commission. The State Corporation Commission process, again, we expect to begin this fall, does not end the engagement process. There will be additional opportunities for the public to engage with the State Corporation Commission, to share their comments with the State Corporation Commission. In other transmission cases, the State Corporation Commission has actually come out to counties to take comments from citizens. They get to decide how that process works, so I can't tell you if they will do that in this case or not, but regardless, there will be additional comments, additional opportunities for comments to the SCC. Finally, after about a 12-month process, the State Corporation Commission will make the final determination on the route that Valley Link can construct. That's the job of the SCC, is to make that final determination. So we expect to have a ruling from the SCC in the fall of 2027. Again, just a simple thank you to all of you. We appreciate the time and attention that you've given to this matter. Thank you very much.
Thank you. All right, so I'd like to say thank you to Valley Link for coming out here. This was fairly shorter notice, if I'm not mistaken. I would encourage some follow-up. I know that some of our questions from the board were detailed and difficult to answer on your feet, but we would like to get some, a follow-up, I guess, to any kind of unanswered technical questions, if that'd be okay. Other board members, do you guys have any comments before we close up? All right, I'll go ahead.
I appreciate everybody coming out, and I've been on this board for 7.5 years, and seeing the community not just come out to yell at us, but this was the first instance where I had people come and say, hey, we want to get involved. We want to partner alongside you. And it made all the difference in the world. So thank you for those that have stepped up, spent the hours, and have done that. We couldn't have this result without you. And that's just a fact. So thank you very much for that.
All right. And
Mr. Chairman,
go ahead.
I wasn't going to say anything, but because I didn't want to really prolong this. I too thank you all. Thank you, those of you who spoke. It's from the heart, no question about it, and thank the rest of you for being here. And thank the Dominion folks for putting up with this and enduring our comments and listening, hopefully taking things to the heart as well. I wanted to share a real world situation that happened to me today at lunch. Okay, a friend of mine, and I hope he's still a friend of mine after our conversation today at lunch. Somehow we were talking about this, and he said, you know, it's going to cause our rates to go up. All residential rates are going to go up. I said, well, you know, I'm not hearing that. I'm hearing that, you know, perhaps that will not affect the residential, your costs. The thing of it is, there's nothing I could say to that person that would let him believe something other than his costs were going up, okay? So I'm saying to you all, I'm suggesting or maybe requesting that you take a look at the messaging of this and, you know, because I think most of the people here, or the perception they have is there's nothing in it for them. I mean, perhaps it's on the other side, the negative side, that, you know, they're not going to benefit from this line. The folks in Northern Virginia are going to benefit and so forth and so on. So, and you use a new word tonight for me, and that is fairer share. You know, to have the corporations pay their fair share, but perhaps even a fairer share. And so I would suggest that you look into that and take a look at the messaging and see if you can't turn around that perception. If in fact it is true that residential rates are not going to go up, that the data center developers and the users will bear the brunt of this cost. If that's a fact, make sure you get that word out and try to, you know, turn it around. I think you're digging out of a hole on that, so to speak, because I think the perception is out there. And you know you cannot equate families' lives, their property with dollars. In other words, so I'm not trying to do that, but what I'm saying is, what is in it for them, if anything? I mean, they're sacrificing everything and see no benefit. So I don't know what you can do about it, but maybe something you ought to work on.
All right, thank you, Mr. Winfrey. So final closing remarks. Thank you to all the residents who came out here and who are staying engaged in this issue and others. I'd also like to thank staff, Sheriff's Office, Fire Department, schools, for making this happen. And with that, we will go ahead and adjourn to June 2nd, 2026, 1:30, Board of Supervisors Audit and Finance Committee in room 270. It's open to the public. And also that afternoon at 3 p.m., the regular afternoon meeting and our 6 p.m. public hearing meeting, which are also open to the public, in the main boardroom, 250. Thank you, everyone. Meeting adjourned.
Good job, Mr. Chairman. Oh, man.
I am going.